Father's Day. Father's Day is on Sunday.
Imagine it's Father's Day, 2,700 years ago at MCC, Micah Community Church. And the text for the day is Micah 7. I'm overwhelmed with sorrow, sunk in a swamp of despair. Neighbourhoods and families are falling to pieces. The closer they are, sons, daughters, in-laws, the worse they can be. Your own family is the enemy. Has that been your life for the last 2 weeks? Imagine how that could be developed into a Father's Day message. I think we'll leave that for another time. So let's move on 700 years and imagine Father's Day at MCC Messiah Community Church. And the scene is set for us in Luke chapter 8. On his return, Jesus was welcomed by a crowd. They were all there expecting him. A man came up, Jairus by name. He was president of the meeting place. He fell at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his home because his 12-year-old daughter, his only child, was dying. Jesus went with him, making his way through the pushing, jostling crowd. In the crowd that day, there was a woman who for 12 years had been afflicted with hemorrhages. She had spent every penny she had on doctors, but not one had been able to help her. She slipped in from behind and touched the edge of Jesus' robe. At that very moment, her hemorrhaging stopped. Jesus said, "Who touched me?" When no one stepped forward, Peter said, "But Master, we've got crowds of people on our hands. Dozens have touched you." Jesus insisted, "Someone touched me. I felt power discharging from me." When the woman realized she couldn't remain hidden, she knelt trembling before him. In front of all the people, she blurted her story, why she touched him, and how at that moment she was healed. Jesus said, "Daughter, you took a risk trusting me, and now you're healed and whole. Live well, live blessed." Well, that scene gives us two different stories. There's a story about a sick girl and a father, and the challenge they are facing is life-threatening. 14 years ago, I watched my son and daughter-in-law go through the pain of losing their little girl. And that pain never ever goes away. But what does ease the pain is being part of a family. It's feeling the care and the love and the support of other family members. And key to that is the role of a father. You know, often families can go through so much stress that the family members can start attacking one another. And it can get to a point where, as Micah says, your own family becomes the enemy. You know, Jairus, the father of this girl, he would have experienced stress. But it's not stress that motivates him. It's love for his little girl. And that leads him to respond in a number of ways. One, to be proactive in seeking help. To be humble in recognizing his limitations. To be open in acknowledging a higher power. And to be tenacious in holding on to the authority of Jesus. Loving, proactive, humble, open, tenacious. You've got 5 ingredients there of a great father. And Jairus was a great father. And if you see those qualities in a father near you today, you tell him, encourage him, because it's not easy being a great father. When my son lost his daughter Talia, he had many questions. We talked about those together. But it was the words of God to Job at the end of Job's ordeal that really got through to Luke. Job 38 says, "And now finally God answered Job from the edge of a violent storm. He said, 'Why do you confuse the issue? Why do you talk without knowing what you're talking about? Pull yourself together, Job. On your feet. Stand tall. I have some questions for you. Where were you when I created the earth? Tell me, since you know so much. You know, for 4 chapters, God continues to speak in that vein to Job. And Luke says, what got to me was the sarcasm of God. It was the sovereignty of God, the transcendence of God. And Luke's response was like Job's. I'm convinced you can do anything and everything. Nothing and no one can upset your plans. Is grief still there? Oh, yes, it is. But with the grief, there is this awareness that God is still in control. You know, sometimes people can find comfort in the fierce love of God. Job did, Luke did, and as you read the story of Jairus, I think he did too. There's a second story running alongside Jairus and his little girl. It's a story about a sick woman who is on her own. COVID-19 isolates us into households for a number of weeks. This woman's disease isolated her from her household for 12 years. Her condition under the Jewish law rendered her unclean, and that's why she enters the story secretively. 12 years of hemorrhaging has an effect. This woman is drained. She is drained physically, mentally, financially, emotionally. But the Jewish law, which marginalized her, also gives her a means of hope. And she comes into the story just thinking, if I can just touch the edge of Jesus' robe. What's that about? Well, early in the history of the Jews, they were told to make tassels for their garments. And those tassels were a reminder that God freed them from bondage. Later in their history, a Jewish prophet spoke about God bringing healing in his wings. Edge, tassels, wings are all the same word in Jewish scriptures. And this woman is reaching out to touch the tassels of the garment, the wings of healing, the edge of Jesus' robe. And the moment she touches, her hemorrhaging stops. The wonderful thing is the story doesn't end there. The draining that has been her life for 12 years is over. But you know, there's a void, there's a vacuum, there's an emptiness that needs to be filled. And so Jesus asked, who touched me? No one steps forward. So Jesus persists, someone touched me. And I love the narrative of Luke that says, when the woman realized she couldn't remain hidden. You see, she'd been remained hidden for too long. In front of all the people, she'd been isolated for too long. She blurted out her story. Her story had not been told for too long. And then Jesus speaks, and the first word he says to her is daughter. A woman isolated from human contact for 12 years. Daughter. See how Jairus loves his little girl? Daughter. A father to the fatherless, a protector of the widow. Daughter. Don't you just love Jesus? Daughter. 12 years unclean, unwanted, unaccepted, unloved. Daughter. You took a risk trusting me, and now you're healed, you're whole, live well, live blessed. Not only has her hemorrhaging ceased, she's now filled with the love of a father. The reality is, it's Father's Day under another lockdown at MCC in 2021, Massey Community Church. What's your present story? Are you in a good bubble, with a good family, a good dad? then let him know he's doing well. Encourage him today. Are you in a bubble where there are huge challenges? I'm not going to say be kind. What I'm going to say is this: ask for help. Because we live in a crazy world. But in our crazy world, there is a place, there is a link where you can get help. For that woman, it was the edge of a garment. For you, it may be something online. I can recommend to you, Celebrate Recovery. Don't let fear, don't let pride stop you accessing the help that you might need at this time. It could well be that you're in an own bubble and you're separated from everybody. Be open to the voice who says, daughter, son, I have created you, I have formed you, I have rescued you, I've called you by name, you're mine. Whatever your circumstance, whatever your situation, whatever your story, may you at this time experience something of the Father heart of God.